Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Let me tell you something real quick. Wealth doesn't come from working harder. It comes from thinking differently. You've been taught your whole life to trade time for money. You were told to get good grades, go to school, get a job, and then what? Live paycheck to paycheck and call that success. No, that's not God's design for you. You were born to create value, not just show up for work. See, you've been programmed to believe that money is this elusive, mystical thing that only lucky people or geniuses can have. But wealth is simply a reward for solving problems. The bigger the problem you solve, the bigger the paycheck you attract. So stop chasing money and start becoming valuable. That's when wealth starts chasing you. Now let's talk about self-esteem. Let me ask you a bold question. How much do you believe you're worth? Because here's the truth. You'll never receive more than you believe you deserve. If deep down you think you're not worthy, you'll savage every opportunity that comes your way. Self-esteem isn't about hype or fake confidence. It's about agreement with who God already says you are: powerful, chosen, equipped, and favored. But here's the trap. Most people are living under money blocks. Mental strongholds that whisper lies like, I'm not good with money. Rich people are greedy. Or, I don't deserve abundance. Where did those ideas come from? I'll tell you, from people who were broke and bitter, and you're still letting their voice run your life. Enough of that. It's time to reprogram your mind and fire those limiting beliefs. You weren't put on this earth just to survive. You were designed to dominate. That means you don't just pay bills and die. You build legacies, launch businesses, impact nations. But here's the kicker: wealth is spiritual. You can't create prosperity on the outside if you're bankrupt on the inside. When your heart is aligned with purpose, when your soul is rooted in truth, and when your words declare victory, you attract abundance. Let me be clear: the words coming out of your mouth are creating your bank account. Speak increase, speak overflow. Stop saying, I can't afford it. That's a poverty curse. Start saying, how can I afford it? That's a wealth question. One opens doors, the other slams them shut. You choose. You were not created for debt. You were created for dominion. Stop bowing to the bills and start commanding the blessing. Break the cycle, break the curse. Build the wealth, not just for you, but for your children and your children's children. Generational wealth starts with a generational decision, and that decision starts now. Wealth is not about working more hours. It's about creating more value. The world doesn't pay you for how tired you are. It pays you for the problems you solve. And here's the thing most people miss: time is a limited resource, but value is limitless. You can only work so many hours in a day, but your ideas, your creativity, and your solutions can work for you 24/7. That's the game changer. Think about it. The janitor and the CEO both work hard, but they don't get paid the same. Why? Because the CEO solves bigger problems. It's not about how hard you work. It's about how you think. When you move from labor to leverage, from sweat to strategy, you enter the realm where true wealth begins to manifest. You go from being a consumer of value to a creator of it. That's how the wealthy think. Most people are trained to think like employees, not entrepreneurs. They're taught to ask, how much does it pay? Instead of asking, how much is it worth? That's a broke mindset. You were created with the ability to multiply, to produce, to create. Your words, your vision, your actions. Those are tools of wealth creation. But if you're still thinking that your time is your greatest asset, you'll always be limited. Time is just the starting point. Value is where the multiplication happens. And don't confuse value with effort. You might be grinding hard, doing 12-hour shifts, but if you're not producing results that matter to others, you'll still be broke. Wealth is a reward for results, not activity. Start asking yourself better questions. What problem can I solve that matters to people? How can I solve it faster, better, or with more heart than anyone else? That's where money lies. Right there. In the gap between pain and solution. You have to shift your identity. Stop seeing yourself as a worker and start seeing yourself as a producer. You are a walking solution. When you think like that, opportunities show up. People pay for transformation, not information. And if you can bring change, real, measurable change, to someone's life or business, they will pay you again and again. That's how you build wealth. Not by selling your time, but by selling your transformation. You'll never earn more than what you truly believe you're worth. That's not just a mindset trick. That's a spiritual law. Self-esteem isn't just about how you feel about yourself on a good day. It's about the invisible ceiling you set over your own life. And here's the crazy part on most people's financial problems aren't about lack of opportunity, lack of education, or even lack of money. It's about lack of you belief. They've built their lives around a self-image that says, I'm not enough, and then wonder why nothing changes. Let's get one thing straight yourself. Esteem is directly tied to your net worth. Not because confidence magically puts money in your bank account, because confidence determines what kind of risks you take, what kind of rooms you enter, and what kind of value you're willing to charge for. If deep down you think you're not worthy, you'll discount your services, undercharge your worth, avoid big moves, and apologize every time you try to show up. That's not humility. That's self-sabotage. You weren't created to shrink. You see, the marketplace doesn't pay you based on your background or your family tree. The marketplace pays you based on a perceived value. And that perception starts with how you carry yourself. If you don't believe in what you're offering, nobody else will. If you don't believe you deserve abundance, you'll subconsciously reject it, delay it, or destroy it when it comes. This is why people win the lottery and go broke in 5 years. Their money grew faster than their mindset, so they lost it all. They weren't prepared to receive what they could yet believe. That's why you've got to raise your internal thermostat. If you're only comfortable at outy $40 a year, you'll unconsciously sabotage anything above that. But when you increase your internal belief, your external income rises to match. This isn't just psychology. It's spiritual alignment. When you start agreeing with what God says about you, that you're a creator, not a consumer, a leader, not a loser, a multiplier, you're not just a maintainer. You begin to operate from power. And when you walk in that identity, money no longer controls you. It follows you. Because the world makes room for people who know they are. You don't earn what you want. You earn what you are. So elevate your self-image and watch your finances follow. Most people don't realize that the biggest barrier to wealth isn't a lack of opportunity. It's a belief system that's been programmed into them since childhood. Money blocks are not real walls, but they might as well be because they feel real. These are false ideas we've inherited, usually from people we love, trust, or grew up around who didn't understand money either. So what do? We absorb their beliefs without questioning them. Money is evil. Rich people are greedy. I'm not good with money. If I try to make more, I'll fail. These aren't facts. They're fears that we treat like laws. And as long as those beliefs stay in place, no amount of strategy will help you build lasting wealth. It's like trying to run with a rope tied around your waist. You take a few steps forward, then get yanked right back. Why? Because deep down, you don't feel safe being wealthy. Somewhere in your subconscious, you've associated money with judgment, pressure loss, or even moral failure. And the mind is always going to protect you from what it believes is dangerous, even if that danger is just success. So you self-sabotage, you procrastinate, you undercharge, you spend faster than you earn. Not because you're lazy or irresponsible, but because your internal thermostat is set too low. That's what money blocks do. If you've ever said, I'm just not wired for money, I want to challenge that. You were made in the image of a creator who lacks nothing. So how could you be built to lack? You're not broken. You're just bound by a story that doesn't belong to you. The good news is you can rewrite it. But first, you have to recognize the lies. Ask yourself, here did I learn this belief? Is it absolutely true? And is it helping me or hurting me? When you start questioning your internal programming, the chains start to fall off. Wealth isn't just about dollars. It's about freedom, and freedom starts in the mind. You can't break into a wealthy life until you break out of a poverty mindset. Until then, you'll reject the very blessings you pray for. So today, stop negotiating with your limitations. Expose the lie. Replace it with truth. And watch what happens when your mind finally becomes place wealth is allowed to live. When your inner world aligns with your divine purpose, your outer world begins to multiply, financially, emotionally, and spiritually. Most people are trying to build wealth from the outside in. They think if they just get another job, work overtime, or hustle harder, they'll finally break through. But that's backwards. The truth is, prosperity starts inside. It starts with identity. When you understand who you are and why you were created, you begin to operate from a place of purpose instead of pressure. And purpose is magnetic. It attracts the right people, the right opportunities, and yes, the right income. You were never meant to chase money. That's a sign of misalignment. When you're in alignment, money becomes a tool, not a master. And tools don't lead, they follow. They follow vision, conviction, clarity, and assignment. But the reason so many people struggle financially is because their soul is out of order. They're trying to manifest millions while thinking like victims. They're asking for overflow while speaking lack. They're trying to build an empire while carrying unhealed trauma and doubt. That's not alignment. That's confusion. And confusion repels favor. Real wealth flows through clarity of identity and clarity of mission. When you know who you are, when you know what God has assigned to your hands, you stop asking, can I do it? And start asking, who can I bless with this? That shift from survival to service is what opens the heavens over your life. That's when doors swing open. That's when strategies fall into place. That's when clients, contracts, and connections start showing up out of nowhere. Because you're finally positioned where you're supposed to be. There's power in spiritual alignment because it removes resistance. You're not forcing success, you're flowing in it. You don't have to manipulate, fake, or stress. You just walk in your assignment and abundance follows. That's not magic, that's law. That's order. That's kingdom principle. You're not just building a business, you're walking out a calling. And when your finances are tied to your purpose, they become e-sustainable. You're no longer dependent on hustle culture, you're tapping into heavenly flow. If you want all that lasts, stop chasing the bag and start chasing alignment. Because when your soul and your strategy are in agreement, nothing can stop your breakthrough. Your words are your world. What you say isn't just communication, it's creation. Every time you open your mouth, you're either designing your destiny or destroying it. Most people don't realize this, but wealth responds to your vocabulary before it responds to your effort. You could be grinding all day, hustling, working overtime. But if your mouth is constantly saying, I can't do this, I'll never be rich, money is hard to come by, then you're planting seeds of lack in your future. You can't speak poverty and expect prosperity to show up. Your words are magnets. They don't just describe your life. They attract the conditions of your life. That's why it's not just important to think positive. You've got to e-speak positive. You've got to talk like the person you're becoming, not the person you've been. You want to build wealth. Start sounding like wealth. Stop saying you're broke. Broke is not your identity. It's a temporary condition, and it will remain permanent if you keep affirming it with your language. There's a powerful connection between your mouth and your money. If you're always speaking about how expensive everything is, how drained you feel, how nothing ever works out for you, guess what? You're programming your subconscious to keep creating that exact experience. But if you flip the script and start declaring, money flows to me easily and consistently. I attract profitable opportunities. I'm anointed for increase. You're rewiring your mind to expect success. And what you expect, you begin to see. Some people think that sounds like hype or wishful thinking. It's not hype. It's alignment. When you speak in alignment with your vision, you give it permission to manifest. That's not fantasy. That's faith. The most powerful form of faith is the ability to speak what you can't see until you see what you spoke. Wealth is not just a matter of numbers. It's a matter of declarations. Change your words and you'll change your worth. So stop cursing your finances with negative speech. Start blessing your bank account, even if it's on zero, because you're not speaking what ooh is. You're speaking what's coming. The future is voice activated. Speak wisely. Speak boldly. Speak wealth. You were not created for debt. You were created for dominion. That's not just a nice sounding phrase. That's a spiritual truth. Debt is a system of bondage. Dominion is a position of authority. Most people have been conditioned to see debt as normal, even necessary. We've been told that debt is just part of life. Car notes, credit cards, student loans, mortgages. But let me ask you something. If you were born to rule, why are you living as a servant to lenders? Debt keeps you reactive. Dominion makes you proactive. When you operate from dominion, you command your money, you direct your time, you decide your outcome. When you're buried in debt, you live by reaction, reacting to bills, reacting to due dates, reacting to emergencies. Dominion flips that. Dominion says, I create the future. I design the outcome. I declare increase. Dominion is not about ego. It's about alignment with divine authority. You were made in the image of a creator. Why would you live like a consumer? See, most people don't have a money problem. They have a mastery problem. They haven't taken dominion over their finances because they haven't taken dominion over their thoughts, their words, and their habits. You can't build wealth while speaking like a beggar. You can't live in overflow while thinking in shortage. Dominion starts in the mind, gets activated in the mouth, and shows up in your results. Let's get even clearing. You don't escape debt by hustling harder. You escape debt by elevating your identity. When you start to see yourself as someone who was never meant to be Oni, you stop tolerating financial slavery. You stop calling broke humble. You stop calling lack normal. That's when dominion rises. That's when you say, I will not pass this curse on to the next generation. It stops with me. Wealth doesn't start with money. Wealth starts with ownership. Ownership of your choices, ownership of your calling, ownership of your authority. You were created to multiply, to manage, to master, not to just scrape by. Dominion doesn't mean arrogance. It means stewardship at the highest level. It means building systems that bless others, creating value that produces revenue, and living in such a way that money becomes a tool, not a master. When you embrace dominion, wealth is not a dream. It's a decision, and it's one you make today. So now the choice is in your hands. You can keep living by default, or you can start living by design. You can keep repeating the patterns that got you stuck, or you can rise up and rewrite the story. Wealth is not a mystery. It's a mindset. It's not reserved for the chosen few. It's activated by those who choose. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. You are the condition. You are the catalyst. You are the one your bloodline has been waiting for. It's time to shift your beliefs, speak with boldness, walk in authority, and build the wealth you were born to steward. This isn't just about money. It's about legacy. It's about purpose. It's about breaking every chain that ever told you. You can't. I'm telling you right now, you can, and you will. Because when you change the way you think, the way you live has no choice but to follow. So go out and build it. Manifest the wealth. Manifest your self-worth. Destroy the lies and walk boldly in the truth on. You were created to prosper. If this message stirred something in you, comment, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe. Because we're just getting started. Let's go build this thing.